Thank you for being here today. I am Amaia. I'm an international educator, and I'm part of the Global Teachers for a Sustainable Future project, together with Carmen Becker from a Technische Universität Braunschweig in Germany. Well, before we start our presentation, I want to do a very quick activity. So I want you to think of different approaches by which university education could drive societal change. But I want you to use only 4 emojis to represent your ideas. Okay, so this is a very, very fast activity. So don't think too much and just try and be creative.
Amaia, please move the window from the question because the question is not readable anymore. Great, thanks. Okay, Barbara didn't read properly the instructions.
Yeah.
It's for emojis only.
Barbara, not you. Yeah.
You're just getting this one from me now.
Yeah, it's okay. You tried. Thank you for that. Well, I'm going to move forward because we only have 20 minutes, okay? But you can still think of your answers and just place them in the chat, okay? So today, what we want to talk precisely is about how universities can act as engines of social transformation and how intercultural and global learning should be integrated into university curricula. So after a very quick context, we are going to show you a practical example, which is the GTSF, or Global Teachers for a Sustainable Future project. Okay, so universities are engines of social change. I mean, it is very important that we understand that universities are not just places where you can learn facts, but one of the main stakeholders responsible for tackling global issues. But how can universities give solutions to global issues? Well, there are many ways. Maybe you know some of them. We did a little research, and we are going to highlight 3. One is by bringing together global experts to find innovative solutions through research. The second one is through collaboration with government, with community, with companies, and try to turn ideas into actions. And what for us is the most powerful strategy is by graduating future global and active citizens that will provide innovative and transformative solutions. So this sounds lovely, but how can this be done? For us, the most feasible, low cost, and transferable way is to integrate global and intercultural learning into university curricula. And this is the focus of our presentation. Okay, if we go to research, we can see that it shows that diverse teams are some of the most innovative. They provide different experiences and different perspectives, and this can lead to breakthroughs. But if you work, as I imagine you do, in multicultural teamwork, you know and you understand that intercultural communication and intercultural understanding is super challenging. And people really need training. But unfortunately, at university, intercultural competence or global competence that we are using today is not integrated into teaching curricula. In addition, before we applied for funding, we conducted a survey and we asked educators about the importance of integrated intercultural and global competences into their teaching. They all said it is very important, but they feel insecure and unprepared because of a lack of training. They also mentioned they have no models, they have no best practices to inspire them. And this is where the Global Teachers for a Sustainable Future project comes from. With this project, we wanted to overcome those challenges. Okay, so on one hand, we wanted to create innovative practices to promote global and sustainable learning and integrate it into the formal curricula. All the activities that we are doing are research-based. Okay, so we're doing pre-test, we're doing post-test, we're doing focus group interviews, etc. Okay, because we really want to check if our students grow global competence. On the other hand, when we were thinking, okay, we want to create a program, we want to integrate it into the formal curriculum, and we want to evaluate global competence development in our students, what is the degree that we could use to do that? And we thought teacher education was the appropriate one, because we could also equip educators with the skills they need to inspire future citizens to become active, sustainable professionals. Okay, so now what we're doing is to explain the step-by-step process we did to integrate global competence. I insist we used the term global competence into undergraduate curricula. So the key part of this initiative was to develop a global competence framework that we consider our global competence framework. Why? Because we analyzed 3 of the most dominant global competence models, and we thought that all of them were missing something. So we analyzed the OECD Global Competence Model, the Asia-Pacific one, and the Global Competence Model trademark. So we extracted from them all the dimensions, all the components, and we used small group work and fishbowl strategies to define first what global competence really means for us. And we defined global competence as the capacity to navigate local and global environments, appreciating diversity for social justice in sustainable societies. Second, we selected the knowledge and the skills we thought were more relevant for our graduates today. And last, we emphasize values such as compassion or digital responsibility, integrity, make sure ethical and compassionate, that we graduate ethical and compassionate citizens. Why did we emphasize those values? Because we couldn't find them. I mean, they were missing in all the models we analyzed, and for us were so important nowadays. So from here, we could start planning our program. But for this, I'm going to invite my colleague Carmen to share with you the process we used to translate this framework into learning outcomes and into practical activities in the end, and to show you the results of a pre-pilot that we've done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amaia. So first of all, in designing our program, we identified learning outcomes and especially focusing on the global mindset and the knowledge, skills, and attitudes we developed in our framework. And then we also developed an approach that led or can lead the students from knowing to doing, which is very important. And we identified global or relevant content for our project, which was from global and sustainable education, locality, and also major global challenges like climate change, inequalities, and so on. And then we identified projects and activities and tasks that we wanted to the learners to carry out in the virtual exchange. And those projects and experiences or activities should be real-world, hands-on projects, experiential tasks that foster critical thinking and collaboration. Next slide, please, Amaia. And what I'm talking about now, you've already heard in Sarah's presentation as well, some of the challenges in implementing the program. For example, choosing the subjects, because the different universities in the exchange program, they have different subjects sometimes, so that's not so easy to decide. Then to negotiate and agree with the partners on what to teach, how to teach it, and when to teach it, that can be challenging with different access to technology, but also time zones. We heard about that as well in the talk before. And then the implementation, which is sometimes also hard with the different curricula to implement the program seamlessly into selected subjects. And then also the evaluation, which is also important in the implementation. We've heard about that as well, using both formative and summative assessments, and also measure the students' learning gains and growth in global competence. And we have now, here is an example. You probably don't have enough time to read it all, but we developed a 14-week program, and it is the GTSF full program. It follows a step-by-step integration model, and it starts with building global competence foundations on sustainability, SDGs, diversity. And in the beginning, it especially creates a common spirit among the participants, and leads for an awareness to the local, whereas towards the end of the program, they also look at the more global. And it uses experiential learning, that's very important, identity texts, community walks, a real-world project, so that the students are not only in the virtual, but they go out and share also their experiences in the real world with their exchange partners. It encourages reflection, action planning, and collaboration. And I will show you in a minute how that works. And it ends with students' presentations and evaluations, linking the learning to the impact. And the goal, we heard about that as well before, is shaping the students into globally minded change makers. And now I will show you a successful story. Our project starts with a personal reflection, and we heard about that in Sarah's presentation as well. We call this personal reflection and getting to know activity an identity text. The students explore in this identity text assignment, they explore how family history, cultural traditions shape who they are. And they also interview relatives and choose meaningful cultural traditions, meaningful artifacts like music, stories, heirlooms, to bring that identity to life. And the goal was to make visible the links between heritage and self-understanding. And now here you could see an identity text by as one of our participating students in the pilot program, who explained how the migration history of her family, and also showed some artifacts like a folding activity, and integrated a wonderful video, also having her parents speak to her about their migration story. And she recognized how family migration shaped her identity, but also emphasized her individuality. And it's very interesting to read the data, but maybe you can show us this slide. In the end, she asked, so what am I to you? German, Vietnamese, German, do I have to be something? So she said, I won't be reduced to appearances or labels. And this kind of reflection helps students to see themselves as complex and evolving. And what we did in the next step is we exchanged those identity texts internationally with the students taking part in the international exchange. And or in the virtual exchange. And this really created a third space beyond national origin, where the students found unexpected also common ground to talk about. And we have data also showing that they developed empathy, insight, and appreciation of shared humanity. And they recognize the diversity within the group, and it contributes to this common spirit, and it is a step towards the vision of a safe and just space for humanity, at least in our project. And that's how we started. And then we had lots of activities following, as I described before. And towards the end of the project, we go into and take a community walk. They're asked to choose an unfamiliar community in their environment, in an unfamiliar neighborhood that they have never been before. And the goal is to practice ethnographic observations and connect it to sustainable development goals. So what are the challenges in this community? And they are supposed to pay attention to language, to architecture, services, and social life. And the key questions were, what am I seeing, hearing, and feeling? And the students are also asked to reflect deeply on how the place they visited confirmed assumptions they had about this place, and whose voices are present here and whose are missing, and what did I learn about myself during this walk. And it became an exercise in self-awareness. This student group chose to visit a home of the elderly because they said they had no clue what those places were, and it also challenged their assumptions, and in the end they were quite critically about the places. And it was very interesting then to see their observations, and they analyzed their observations together. They presented using maps, and you can see that here, audio and visuals, and then they chose and then they also met with their international group and discussed those findings. And of course, this was also very interesting because some of our participants, they didn't believe in putting the elderly into homes, and they believed in having them in their families, and that challenged big discussions on how to treat them and so on, perspectives, change of perspectives and so on. And then they take the community walks and the presentations to decide on one small project, like a service activity, an awareness campaign, or something, a street art project or so, to implement locally and across borders. So go local again, choosing this also from their different backgrounds, perspectives, and so on. In the pilot, we only had students from the United States participating in our project, but this is going to be really big. In our GTSF project, we have 1,000 students registered for the course, and we'll see how far we get with those masses of students in the end. It moved our students from observation to participation, and the journey from personal identity to community action. So that's our goal, to take them there. And they developed empathy, critical thinking, intercultural collaboration, self-awareness, and problem solving. And through the GTSF pilot, our students really became agents of change. They connected local insights with global goals like sustainability and social justice, and most importantly also they practiced inclusion and critical reflection in real world context, like not only in the virtual, even though it wasn't a virtual exchange. And we start with a story, the identity text, a very personal one, and they show and then it leads to a step they take in their different environments, but then together virtually, and then they shape a shared future together. And that's also our vision. So it's really the project shows, or the pilot already shows, what's possible when identity, empathy, and action come together. So thank you very much.